started. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. In our Unitarian Universalist community, we strive to create a welcome and affirming space for all, recognizing and celebrating the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The commitment to inclusion informs all aspects of our shared life, especially our worship services. We believe our services should be a space where every individual feels respected for their unique identity and experiences. We are committed to working together to build a truly inclusive and loving community where everyone belongs. To increase accessibility and inclusivity in our service today, I'm sharing a little bit about myself and some service elements. Well, my name is Jessica Elstrom. Hello. It is my pleasure to be your service associate this morning. I'm a Caucasian woman in my 30s with brown hair, and I'm wearing a green plaid shirt with like black pants. My pronouns are she, her, and sometimes they, them, depending on. And then we project images and song lyrics on the wall behind me during the service, right up there. And then we can come to you with a microphone, or you can come to the front during our joys and concerns. Okay.
The words for our chalice lighting today were written by Cooper Garrett. O divine love, with the kindling of this flame, may we realize and love our true selves, our true round belly selves, our true bags under our eyes selves, our true naturally hairy selves, our true wrinkles on our skin selves. May our self-love help keep our chalice ablaze. You may remain seated for the chalice song.
May we be open to this light and the rich possibilities that it brings us.
Now is the time in our service for our covenant. So if you would please join me in reading our congregational covenant. The words are right up on the screen for us. Ready? We covenant to create a caring, affirming, and inclusive community that invites us to become our best selves and to serve the wider community and the world. Okay. And then we're going to light the green earth candle. So we will light this green candle to affirm our commitment in caring for the planet that is our home. Somebody's going to light that for us. Yeah. All right. And now we're going to introduce our guest. So Emily Hedrick is a resilience educator specializing in recovery from religious trauma and compassion fatigue. A former pastor, she blends her background in ministry with trauma-informed practices to help others find wholeness and healing. Emily is the author of How to Treat Your Body Like a Sacred Text, a guide to reconnecting with the body through progressive spirituality and practical skills.
Our opening words today are titled Religion at Its Best, and were written by Sarah Milspo. Religion is as much about faith in humanity as it is about faith in a deity. And many of us will find that over and over our faith in humanity gets tested. We are immersed in a culture that's deeply corrupted by selfishness, greed, and oppression-born privilege and fear. It's all too easy for us to justify the dehumanization, ostracization, suffering, and death of others. It's all too easy for us to devalue some humans' lives and feel somehow like we're still good, upstanding, moral people. Religion at its best asks us to do better than this, to rise above the selfishness and status seeking, the othering and xenophobia that come so easily to us. Religion at its best calls us to honor that which is sacred in each person, even those we might hate, even those who we find disgusting. It impels us to accept on faith that there is a sacred spark, a worthy spark in every person. This can sound mundane, but it's very radical, revolutionary even. Each person sacred, each person worthy. Accepting this on faith changes how we live. In this time when so many of us live in fear of a dehumanizing political regime, let us renew our pledge to live out those sacred and humane teachings that draw us toward compassion, love, and justice in ever-widening circles of care. You may stand as you are willing or able for our gathering hymn, and we're going to try a round today. The choir is ready to hold their own over here, and I am going to help us hold our own on the other side. So if I pop up and start directing you, that's why.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here is one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here is one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
Now is the time in our service for our joys and concerns. Friends, as we gather in community today, we take a moment to share the heartfelt joys and concerns that touch our lives. Sharing these experiences allows us to connect with one another, celebrating victories, and offer support during challenges. For those who feel comfortable doing so, we invite you to come forward and light a candle and place an object in the Zen garden and share a brief joy or concern. Or we can bring the microphone to you. And remember, those on Zoom can also share any joys and concerns, and we'll read them out loud or express them as needed.
That part of the Unitarian Universalist faith is not only affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, but also affirming the inherent wholeness of every being, despite what might seem to be brokenness. No one hearing or offering these words is a stranger to pain or the knowledge that things break or break down. Promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human understandings and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. Brokenness happens. We're intimately acquainted with brokenness then, even as we believe that no matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live. As you use, we believe that paying attention to something is an act of love. Witnessing and naming brokenness is how we begin to heal it. Some sorrows demand to be named out loud. Sorrow at the death of loved ones. Bodies that are fragile. Being afraid because of inability to pay for the things that we need. Violence in the streets that we call home. Healing begins when we examine what's in pain, wonder how it occurred, and allow it to teach us. In fact, sometimes the brokenness is immense, and the only grasp, the only power we have over that large and complicated pain looming over us is to bear witness, to tell its story, and to seek out companions and helpers who are willing to agree that yes, there is something breaking or messy in front of us, and we will not leave or even look away until repair has begun. If love begins with attention, repair takes the form of compassion, bearing witness, speaking out. Repair looks like connection, justice, even revolution. It looks like after-school tutoring programs, community meals, holding signs in front of City Hall. And it begins by placing full trust and faith that there is inherent wholeness in every broken situation. Thank you to Erica Hewitt for these words. You may remain seated for the silent meditation and the centering hymn.
What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight, streets full of stars, like stars at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. Oh, what this is full of care. We have no time to stand and stare.
A reading from Rebecca Tausig's Sitting Pretty, The View from My Ordinary, Resilient, Disabled Body. When I was small and just learning how to do life in my body, I didn't hesitate, didn't hold back, didn't worry how it would look, didn't look for cues or ask for a line. My imagination ruled. I was entirely free to be, driven by the innovation my body inspired. This is the wild emancipation I wish for all of us. A world where we are all free to be, to move, to exist in our bodies without shame. A world that isn't interested in making all of its humans operate in the exact same way. A world that instead strives to invite more, to exist in our bodies without shame. To include more, imagine more. Hi, Zoom people. That world sees the humans existing on the margins and says, you have what we want. What barriers can we remove so we can have you around? What do you need? How can we make that happen?
And now is the time in our service for our offertory. Each service, we have an opportunity to give thanks for the blessings we have received in our lives and the life of our community. Our offering is a chance to give back in support of our work and outreach. You may submit your offering electronically by following the link in the chat, or you may mail it to All Souls Church at the address, also provided in the chat. At this time, our morning offertory will be given and received.
I'm so glad to be here with you, specifically today. Today, for me, marks 5 years to the Sunday, and we did not plan this, from my last service as a pastor in the Mennonite church. Yeah, I know. Oh, thanks. Wow, I was not expecting to get applause for that. Thank you. It is meaningful to be able to share this anniversary with you and to spend that time preaching from a humanist perspective, which is somewhat new to me. Purely humanist perspective, definitely new for me. And I appreciate the way that this community has made me feel at home enough to be able to share this time with you, so thank you. 5 years ago, I was not doing great. I came to serve my last Sunday in the Mennonite church with little sleep, raging acid reflux, A face full of the pimply, angry version of rosacea, not just the little red flush. And I was having a bit of an existential crisis. All my life, I had wanted to be a Christian pastor. I spent 7 years in school learning how to work with the Bible to offer good news to my congregation, and I just didn't have any good news left. I didn't know that my decision to quit pastoring was the beginning of my relationship with a different sacred text, my body. Bodies aren't texts, of course, but they are full of messages we have to interpret. So, we're going to spend some time getting some messages today, if you don't mind. And I will say before we get into this, I'm going to be asking you to pay attention to your breathing a few times in this sermon, and I may also be asking you to pay attention to your exhales. And I know that it is January, in a time when people get sick a lot, so I'm officially giving you permission to get away from each other if you want to, or not be as obviously exhaling. Maybe consider use nose exhaling if that's a little safer. So clarifying that first. So let's take a moment, a nice long one. I've written in my script 3 breath cycles, and just tune in to your body. Close your eyes if you need to, pay attention to what your body is telling you, or if you want to, you can use your 5 senses to engage with the environment around you and see what your body is telling you about that. What do you notice? So we'll take 3 breath cycles here. I notice my breath, in and out, telling me to receive what I need, release what I don't. Telling me that my lungs, my diaphragm, my nose, my mouth are all working together to keep me going right now. That it is good to be here. It is worth their steady, reliable work to continue on. And I notice the butterflies in my stomach saying, "Hey, they're watching you out there. We want you to succeed." I notice my knees saying, "We'll do anything for you, even lock into place when you don't feel strong enough to muscle through." I notice my feet saying, "There is solid ground beneath you," which is a blessing after the ice out there. It's good to be where you are. Good to be supported. I will keep from doing that, sorry. My hands can feel the pulpit, reminding me that there's more in this world than the things that I think about, that I need more than my thoughts to embrace the world I live in. It's taken time for me to be able to hear my body this way, to hear good news from my body. For many of us in Western culture, we're taught not to listen to our bodies at all. And well, ignoring something doesn't keep it from existing. And when we ignore our bodies, they're still here. They just have to throw temper tantrums for us to notice them. Temper tantrums that can include things like digestive issues, trouble sleeping, inflammation, pain. And it's a damning cycle because suddenly the only thing we expect to hear from our bodies is bad news. You're mortal. You're limited. You're in pain. Life is pain. Life is never enough. You're never enough. And when those are the only messages that get through, it's easy to hate our bodies. It's easy to say, this meat bag I'm living in is the bane of my existence. And we forget. Our bodies are the reason we can experience anything at all. Our bodies are the reason we know what chocolate tastes like. Our bodies are the ones sharing belly laughs with our friends. Our bodies are even creating the thoughts we enjoy exploring, creating the physical responses necessary for us to feel connected to things that are bigger than ourselves. Our bodies are here, making life possible every moment. They are waiting desperately for us to listen to them. It's important to acknowledge that not all illness or pain is the result of how we relate to our bodies. Many of us are carrying sickness or injuries that come through no fault of our own, simply because bodies are vulnerable, mortal, and deeply complex. To suggest otherwise would not only be untrue, but also unkind. Pain and illness are never deserved, and it's not always possible to understand why they happen. What we can do is offer our bodies compassion in the midst of whatever they're experiencing, even if it's unfair or inexplicable. In my experience, the temper tantrum my body was throwing 5 years ago, as I stood in front of a different congregation, was its loudest attempt to get me to pay attention. And I'm not as strong-willed as some, so I took my body up on the invitation. My body became my sacred text. As you all know, many religious traditions center around ancient texts. Christianity has the Bible, Judaism has the Tanakh, Hinduism uses the Bhagavad Gita, Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, and this barely scratches the surface of ancient texts still in use today as part of religious traditions. Centering religious practice around ancient texts provides people of faith with stories, concepts, and poetry to center their conversation and practice. How natural, then, for those of us seeking a humanist tradition to pay attention to our bodies, the bearers of that dignity we commit to finding in each person, as if they were a sacred text. But what does it mean to treat a sacred text with respect? I know that many of us are here today exploring and claiming the Unitarian Universalist tradition because of painful past learning experiences with sacred texts. It's important to recognize that working with a text or a body of any kind involves interpretation, and it is worth being intentional in that. So to be clear, it's not possible to take a sacred text literally, though many claim that it is. We will always be interpreting what we read. It's the same with bodies. When I listened to my body this morning, I heard breath cycles, butterflies in my stomach, knees ready to lock on me, and feet planted firmly on the ground. It was my choice to hear messages of support and love rather than, well, you're in a body, I guess. And when messages get into painful spaces like the body temper tantrums I described, it's an active choice to hear those messages as, you're not listening. Please listen. Instead of, I hate you, why are you here? There are so many angles to take when it comes to interpreting body messages. In my book, I talk specifically about how bodies communicate with us when it comes to potential threats, especially those that emerge from painful past learning in toxic religious experiences. But today, I am deeply aware of the emotional tensity of this week. And depending on your relationship with your body, it might be one of those weeks where it was easy to say, ugh, why is my body being so dramatic when we need to get to work making this world a safer, better, more inclusive place? Or go to the opposite extreme and say, my body is freaking out and that means the entire world that I live in is on fire right now. This is where the faithful work of interpreting our bodies will help us. Some of our bodies are older than others, admittedly, but none of them are as old as the ancient texts many religious traditions center around. And our bodies have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. The existence of human bodies is even more ancient than the texts many faith leaders pore over in various spiritual traditions. This means we have some work to do, bringing our bodies into our current time, while also respecting the wisdom they developed getting us here. So the first thing I like to acknowledge when working with my body is that it evolved to keep me alive. I choose to interpret that reality as this message: you're worth protecting. That means every inconvenient thing my body does because it's afraid something bad will happen is a message of love and support, even as its application can sometimes be misguided. With the political shift we experienced this week, we're facing a lot of uncertainty. and blatant disregard for the dignity within each of us as human beings. I wonder if you've felt your body's acute awareness of that. I know I have. For many, that disregard feels deeply personal. And for some, our trans siblings, those of marginalized genders, skin tones, sexualities, and others whose very existence is being legislated and debated, it is profoundly personal. Our bodies carry not only our individual experiences, but also the weight of systemic harm. In this moment, it feels more important than ever to name that harm and stand against it together. Listening to our bodies can help us hold this truth. Dignity is not granted by those in power. It is intrinsic, shared, and sacred. When we acknowledge our shared worth, we reaffirm our commitment to the dignity of all bodies, particularly those under attack. This week, as my body has responded to all of this, I've cried. I felt utterly exhausted, and I noticed that sense of dread creeping into my shoulders and my rib cage while reading the news. And I know that my body is speaking to me through each of these sensations. You're protecting. This looks bad. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's protect you. But just like it's important to look into things like historical and cultural context when we interpret an ancient text from 2,000 years ago, it's important to look at the historical and cultural context of our bodies. Our threat response, the fight-flight energy that surges through us when we encounter potential threats, evolved to help us through 30-second encounters with very obvious, immediate, predatory threats. Think lions, tigers, and bears. And the trade-off in body processes to get the surge we need to fight off the supposed bear is immense. We lose access to rational thinking. Our bodies stop digesting our food because they have bigger things, literally, to worry about. We start to experience tunnel vision and either-or thinking. And that's all because we had our best chance with big, scary predators when we were only focused on the bear. But that's not what many of us are dealing with today. Most of the things that scare and threaten us in our current context are not 30-second problems. When we face systemic harm and long-term uncertainty, it can feel overwhelming. Our bodies often react as though we're up against immediate short-term threats, even when the challenges stretch far beyond that. So in a minute, I'm going to share some grounding practices, and I want to be clear that I'm not minimizing the weight of what we're carrying here. These practices are about helping our bodies release unnecessary tension so that we can hold that weight more effectively together. Because if we rely on the tension in our shoulders that's supposed to help us deal with a 30-second bear problem to get us through things that threaten us today, it's not going to turn out well. Our bodies will go into overtime and start to wear down. And in fact, it was this kind of energy that created all the physical issues that I stood in front of my congregation with 5 years ago. I'm here to tell you it's not worth it. And there are other ways to be in a body. So as you get these protective messages from your body, you're not helpless. You can actually communicate back. And sometimes we like to start with words when we do that. Words like, wow, you're right, things are uncertain right now, and I feel like who I am is being violated everywhere I turn. But I don't think all the tension in my shoulders is going to help me with this problem this time. Thank you for your help, but I've got this. Bodies don't hear words nearly as well as they hear sensations, though. So, part of my training in trauma was learning how to speak back to my body the same way I might when arguing with a sacred text. You are allowed to do that. And the way I learned to do this was through intentionally relaxing tense parts of my body. So I'm going to offer 2 ways to do this today. The first goes right back to breathing. So have you ever been watching something scary on TV and notice you were holding your breath? When we're threatened, we hold things. It's all about holding intention. And many times when people tell us to breathe, we think about inhaling first. Well, what's inhaling? It's actually a holding thing. The thing that we really need when we're trying to breathe out anxiety or stress is the exhale. That's the thing you're holding when you watch the scary stuff, right? So I invite you to take a few breath cycles, and we're just going to start with 3. And don't do anything special, just notice the difference in how it feels to inhale and to exhale. So here we go. Okay, now we're going to try the special trick. Let's make the exhales just a little bit longer than the inhales are. And you get to decide what that means for you, because we all breathe a little different. So we'll do another 3 breath cycles. That was actually kind of handy for me. I invite you to talk about how that felt when we're out having coffee later. That there is a difference between these 2 parts of the breath cycle. And know that you can access that exhale anytime. You can intentionally try to make it a little longer anytime you feel like you're getting a little hyped up. And your body will thank you for it. So the message, if I was going to put that in words, of letting that long exhale come through is basically, thank you for your help. I can survive this without tension. Here's another one that I found helpful that I think is, I don't know, it's kind of fun and nerdy and weird. And it involves our vision. So when we're threatened, we experience tunnel vision because our bodies are ready to deal with that 30-second problem, like, let's go. And if we want to communicate, actually, I don't need tunnel vision right now because things are not what you're preparing me for, we can intentionally expand our vision. So the way I'm going to teach this to you is going to be a little bit more obvious, but know that you can use this in more subtle ways in the future. But let's start obvious. If you'd like, you can put your 2 fingers in front of your face like this. And I want you to keep your gaze ahead of you, but move your fingers out. And you'll notice that there's a moment where your focus shifts to your peripheral vision, and eventually you won't be able to see your fingers. And this is literally a way to get yourself out of tunnel vision. So sometimes I'll do this when I'm in the car and getting like Boston road ragey. Like, let me switch to my peripheral vision for a second. And it kind of communicates to a body a few things. One is, I don't have to use tunnel vision right now. Look what I just was able to do. And then the other is also, hey, what's on my sides here? Nothing dangerous. Good, we got this. So if either of these exercises helped you communicate with your body about your needs in this moment, I invite you to use them as often as are relevant. I have been using stuff like this for much of my time up here because public speaking is scary, right? So your times where you might want to use these are really any time that you get tense. And you might notice that there are habitual times that you get tense, like when you read the news, or when you're going into an uncertain situation, or when you're interacting with people where you're not quite sure where you stand. Always available. These are always available, and they can be sneaky, so you don't have to tell anybody that you need to leave the room to calm down. Treating our bodies like sacred texts includes both listening and working with them, understanding their history and our present moment and how they can inform each other. So as we wrap up today, I'd like to invite us to think about what it communicates to our bodies that we all showed up here together. When we gather, we create a shared body of bodies, if you will. We have our own unique sacred text in this room just by the nature of all of us being here together. And that comes with its own unique messages. So As our individual bodies, we may have come in with a variety of different messages today. Some of them could have been, I'm tired, I'm scared, and I'm grieving. And as we gather, we may get more messages to add to those. We are here. We are not alone. We are capable of healing and connection. Together, we have an opportunity to do what we can't do alone. Just as we listen to and care for our individual bodies, we get to listen to and care for the collective bodies that we share time and identity with. We can remind one another of the solid ground beneath our feet, the breath that connects us, and the power we have to support each other. The work ahead may feel daunting, but we are not facing it alone. This community can be a space to share what we're carrying, to lighten the load, and to remind each other that no matter what this week, this year, or this life brings, we are worth protecting. Together, we can exhale, expand our vision, and take our next steps forward, not as individuals, but as a sacred, interconnected whole. So I leave you with this invitation. How might you listen to your body this week? And how might you listen to the community body of the spaces that you inhabit with other people? And how might you speak back to both with care, with curiosity, and with the deep knowledge that we are not alone. We are doing this life thing together. You're invited to stand as you are willing or able for the closing hymn. And I'm going to be a nerd and tell you that the tune for this hymn is named after Olivia Brown, the first woman ordained in the UU tradition and probably in the States at all. Yeah. Our closing words were written by Chris Jimerson. Who am I not to be blessed? In moonlit shadows, at the edge of night-darkened oak trees, I see it. Across sunny pathways, in the buzzing of insects, amongst the flowering forest greenery, I hear it. From the touch of one's loved, the embraces of those gone before me, I feel it. In the poems I love dearly, the songs that speak to my heart, the sculpture that catches my imagination, the discoveries still to be made, I sense it. It is in the fire of distant suns, the cool drip of waters, the slight chill in the breeze, the laughter of children, no matter what their age, old and young, grown and still small. It is the breath of life, the stardust of souls, the magic of remembrance. Who am I not to surrender to it in gratitude? Who am I not to be blessed? As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may each of us carry its light into every day of our lives.
All right, now is the time in our service for the announcements. We'd like to give a special thanks to our participants this morning's service. Our service leader today was Emily Hedrick. Service associate was myself, Jessica Elstrom. Usher was the one and only Joseph Maloney. Tech team was Sarah Elstrom and Mary Mitchell. Let's give a thanks. And the music director today was Jacob Clapper. Our upcoming, here we go. And our upcoming events include, we have a Connection Circle, Wednesday, January 29th at 2:30 to 3:30 on Zoom, it's EST. 1 hour of open conversation. Anyone's welcome to join. Then we also have our writing group this week. It's Wednesday, January 29th from 4 to 5:30 on Zoom. The theme will be Event a Dream, not necessarily one that you've had, but you can incorporate elements. So it's a dream writing workshop. And then we also have the Food for the Soul potluck brunch. That's going to be next Sunday, which is February 2nd at 10:30 a.m. It's in person only. The theme will be inclusion. What gifts are you holding in exile? And then we have our Social Action Environmental Committee, ASEC. In the coming weeks, the Social Action Environmental Committee will be issuing short one-page handouts with information on 1 or 2 issues we see important and are proposing to work on. We encourage you to read them, join in on the discussion, and study. And join us in the work as it develops. All Souls meetings always take place on Zoom platforms unless otherwise stated. It says, I am so glad to be with you today. Oh, that's the end. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just reading onwards on other things I shouldn't be reading, so that's the end. As a conclusion to our service, we invite you all to join us in the parish hall for our coffee hour.